Welcome to the Whole Child Sleep podcast, where we help families nurture dreams and raise wholeness. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Whole Child Sleep podcast. I'm your host, Myra Hartzheim, and today we are tackling a topic that we discussed last week, which was on early rising. So today we have a question from a mama. Her name is Emily, and she asked, does anyone have any recommendations for a toddler, almost 2, that is refusing naps or only napping for like 15 minutes? This child is trying to kill me. Emily, you know what that feels like. So any advice or ideas are appreciated. I've tried changing up the time I put him down in case I was doing it too early or too late. That doesn't seem to be getting us anywhere. He wakes between 5 to 6 a.m. every day, so it's a very long time for him to be awake without napping. Send help or caffeine. Emily, that is so difficult. I'm sending you strength during this time. And I also want to send you some tips so that you don't have to continue to endure this exhausted state. So let's jump in. First and foremost, we always want to check for underlying health conditions. And so those can be sneaky and sometimes not obvious and simply have a huge effect on the kiddo. So we will want to firstly check for obstructive sleep apnea, as that can easily impact early rising. So if your kiddo is snoring or mouth breathing, those are the 2 most common symptoms of obstructive sleep apnea. If that is the case, you will want to take your kiddo to an airway specialist or an ENT. They can help you, or a myofunctional therapist that can put you in the right direction to start. Okay, once you've ruled out underlying health conditions, you will then want to assess schedule. When we change up schedule, we need to make sure that we're going in the right direction and that we've done it long enough for the child's body and hormones to recalibrate to sleep the length and the quality that they need to. For your kiddo's case specifically, the likelihood in your situation is that last week window of the day for your kiddo is far too long. For kiddos your toddler's age, their wake window typically is a maximum of 4 hours, sometimes 5 hours if they're great nappers. That doesn't seem to be the case here. This will do 2 things. It will help regulate the circadian rhythm, which will also help reduce cortisol levels, which then will result in early rising, as well as the nap issues, which are caused by dysregulation of the sleep-wake cycle, often caused by higher cortisol levels. So shrink that last wake window. And then the last thing I will also want you to check is whether or not your son is able to really actually fall asleep on his own. Many families say, my kiddo can fall asleep on their own. They're out in like 5 minutes. 5 minutes is the problem. If they're falling asleep in 5 minutes, that's usually because they're getting too much help during bedtime routine. And so they're quite drowsy when put down. And so they're able to fall asleep so quickly and easily. Or that they're just awake too long. And so they're falling asleep really easily because they have so much sleep pressure. So, Emily, those are the 3 things I want you to check. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. And for all the listeners, thank you for tuning in. I hope this was helpful for you as well. And I will talk to you all next week. Thank you for listening to the Whole Child Sleep podcast. For references to articles discussed in this podcast or for evidence on the topics that we've discussed on this podcast, please look in the description below, or you can find the articles linked in our blog at curesleep.us. I want to give you an idea of what you can expect in terms of structure of this podcast moving forward. You can expect 1 podcast a week, and we will cover a topic for 2 weeks. The first week, you can expect the podcast to be more educational and informational. The following week will be more of a Q&A covering the same topic. If you have a question that you would like us to answer during the Q&A podcast, please send them in at 406-551-4083. And if you've found this podcast to be helpful, we ask that you share it. We would love to reach more tired families. We also ask that you subscribe and like and give us a 5-star review. This also helps us reach more tired families. We hope you have a beautiful day, and we will talk to you next week. By listening to this podcast, you understand and agree to the following. The content of this podcast offers the opinions of Myra Hartzheim and her guests, and it is not intended as medical advice. It serves as an informational purpose. For personalized and medical concerns, consult your healthcare professional. The views and opinions in this podcast are our own and don't represent our employees or affiliates. The views of the guests in this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect that of Cure Sleep Group. Our podcast and website are not for legal purposes, such as establishing a standard of care or expert witness testimony. We don't guarantee the accuracy of statements or opinions. We appreciate your assistance in maintaining content accuracy. If you find errors in our podcast or blogs, please reach out via email to support@curesleep.us. This podcast is owned by Cure Sleep LLC and presented by the Whole Child Sleep Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.